Okay, thank you everyone for joining us today. My name is Jeff Jacobs. I'm the Director of Product Marketing here at Virtuous, and I'm going to be emceeing today's webinar. Before we begin, we do have just a couple of housekeeping items. As always, we're going to be recording today's webinar. We'll make sure everyone receives a link to the video here in the coming days. If you find the presentation helpful, we'd like to encourage you to forward it on to your coworkers and colleagues at other nonprofits so they can learn from this as well. Everyone has been muted for the presentation, but at any time, if you have any questions, you can use that Q&A feature here in Zoom. You should see a button down at the bottom. It says Q&A. Go ahead and type your questions in there. I'll see those, and at the end of today's presentation, we'll make sure to answer all of those questions. So a little bit about our time today. We're going to spend a little bit of time up front, about 10 minutes or so, going over the state of fundraising for nonprofits. Then we'll follow that up with a demonstration of Virtuous. And then again, as I mentioned before, short Q&A period at the end to answer any questions that have come up. So now I'd like to introduce you to today's presenter, David Cady.
Thank you, Jeff. Excited to be here, everyone. Happy Thursday. I'll be kind of taking you through today, and I'll take the reins from here, Jeff, if that works.
Yeah, thank you.
You bet. All right. Well, like I said, everyone, my name is David. I live in Phoenix, Arizona, currently working out of home, like I'm sure a lot of us are. I've been in the CRM space for about 13 years and currently run our growth here at Virtuous. Just a few things about me. We are, myself, actually, personally, I am a member of the Giving Institute. Love working with nonprofits and helping them grow fundraising. Married 3 amazing, crazy kids who are currently running around somewhere around the house doing their schoolwork. And so I think we all can relate to that a bit. But excited to walk us, like Jeff mentioned, we're a little bit by just talking about the state of fundraising. And Virtuous is kind of worldview in our lens by which we're, how we look at the world. And we're going to start with this. And this is a pretty simple statement. I think we all can agree that giving is personal. That when we give of our time, our talent, that this is a very personal, meaningful thing. And for me, giving is personal for me. This is an organization that I personally have supported and give to, House of Refuge. It is very literally in my backyard, in my community. They provide low-income housing for folks in our neighborhood and help a lot of single moms and families get back on their feet. So not only do I give because it's in my neighborhood, I see the effect, but we've had family receive their services. And so when we give, we actually see and feel that impact in our family and in our neighborhood. And so my giving to them starts from a very deep and meaningful place. Very much probably like most of the organizations you support on your own. Very deep and meaningful giving. But what tends to happen, right, is donors, they come to our organizations. It's a very personally driven gift. And they're coming to us from a lot of different areas, right? We spend a lot of time focusing on events to drive new donors, maybe some mailings, and donors find a story that resonates with them. We're launching peer-to-peer campaigns. We've got friends of friends of friends that are coming to our organization. And a lot of that first acquisition is very much based on the donor's timing, and it's personal. But what tends to happen is after we get that first-time gift, a lot of that follow-up, retention, and cultivation strategy is disconnected from the donor. We kind of shove them all into this one-size-fits-all approach of, all right, no matter what happened, you all get the next November appeal, the same end-of-the-year campaign. Maybe we put them in our email newsletter. What tends to happen is 76% of donors drop off after that first-time gift and never give again, because that retention strategy becomes very impersonal, disconnected from their intent. It's based on the nonprofit's timing. It's one-to-many, and it's a one-way communication. And what's happening is this growing generosity crisis, and this is backed up by studies from Giving USA, Adrian Sargent, is that 50% of donors are turning over year. There's been a 25% drop, just disappearing, mid and low tier donors. And we're finding that donors are opting out because The asks are inappropriate. They're impersonal messages. There's no transparency. The acknowledgement is not there. And generally the communication is poor and unhelpful. But rest assured, right, that most of this is because the systems that we are using today are designed for that world. They're designed for one-to-many approach. They're not really tailored to help you be personal. And so, of course, we're getting the results we're getting because the systems are working as intended. But what's happening is this problem is growing now because the world that you fundraise in is changing as well. And we talk about how giving is personal by nature, but think about this. Everything in the world has shifted from mass marketing to personalized experiences. Think about the brands that you interact with, right? We've all been watching a lot of Netflix recently. Everything that we do, they're using data to make sure that the experience is tailored for me, that it's based on my community, the activity of my friends. It's two-way behavior driven. So we get responses based on content, data signals. It's all two-way. And so what's happened now is two things. Donors expect a personal connection because they're getting it in every other area of their life, and layer on the fact that giving is also one of the most personal things you can do. So it's magnified, especially in the nonprofit world. So how do we approach this? What can we do? Well, Virtuous believes that doing responsive fundraising is how we can tackle this today. And it's a way to treat all your donors like major donors. We can use technology and tactics to create more personal connections with all of your donors, not just the top 10%, not just the major donors, but everybody, because again, they deserve it and they expect it. So what is responsive fundraising? We're going to talk about this as we demo Virtuous, but it's these four big tenets. One, we need to listen to our donors. We need to understand who they are, why they give, ask questions, and understand. The more we know about them, the better we can engage. So first, we'll talk about how do we listen well. The second one is connect. How do we connect with them personally and in real time to build relationships? Not just ask for another gift, but build genuine, meaningful relationships. How can we automate some of this so everyone can be connected with? After that, once we've built relationship based on what we know about them, how do we then suggest the right ask? Not just the same financial ask for everybody, but based on who they are, their capacity, their intent. And then, of course, we test, we repeat, we figure out what works, we rinse and repeat, and we do it again. So imagine this for a moment. If you remember one of the first slides, we talked about kind of that impersonal retention strategy. Imagine Lisa, who maybe came to you through an event. What if an hour after that event, she gets a thank you email with a 2-question survey asking her about her interests? A day later, she gets a thank you call, maybe from the friend that invited her from your organization. 2 days later, she gets a text messages from your program team that's actually telling her information based on the survey results that she filled out. From that text, Lisa goes to your website and visits around. After that, she leaves the website, and we notice that she didn't give. So we send an email out to her asking to give based on the page that she visited. So maybe we send her some more content relevant to what she was looking at on the website. And then Lisa gives. Awesome. Well, now we can also 15 days later have a postcard from your program team closing the loop on the impact and an entire journey designed around Lisa, her experience, her behavior, her intent. It's personal and it's multi-channel. So what if everyone could have a responsive dynamic follow-up that is based on donor timing, based on their intent? It's driven by their behavior. When we can do that, we see engagement, average gift, retention start to skyrocket because we're creating personal connections. So how do we do this functionally? What does that mean? So Virtuous is a software product. We have 3 kind of big areas that we focus on. First, we are a responsive CRM. So this is where we're going to have things like all our donor data. But Virtuous is going to layer on some other things to help us listen to donors well, like social media scraping, wealth data, web listening, and some predictive analytics. We also are a full marketing automation platform. So we replace all your current email marketing tools, but we also do some cool things like how do we do AI-driven nurtures, letters on demand, donor journeys that are custom and automatic. And then donor-centric giving, full online giving forms, lead forms, web integration where we can suggest best next steps. We can also track web behavior. And so even their online experience is fully donor-centric. So when we make just a few small changes, these are just some of the aggregate results that we're seeing. A 12% increase in retention, a 10% increase in average gift, and a 20% decrease in staff time. Our goal is to 10x your ROI, make sure that you are getting the most out of your Virtuous investment. All right, this is a great quote. Customers say it a whole lot better than I ever could. But I love this from Daphne. It says, Virtuous lets me create tasks and automatic emails, helps me make donors feel special, and adds time in my day. And then ultimately there on the left, we see that adding Virtuous was like adding 10 staff members to our team. How do we help you scale out what you can do? That's our whole goal. Here's just a few customers, sampling of folks that we work with. Again, they're amazing, doing great work in the world. All right, so one other thing that's really important is we don't want to just throw you some software over the wall and say, hey, good luck, here's a new software tool. We're all about being a partner. How do we, one, help you get trained on the system, migrate your data from your old legacy systems? We are fully hands-on in that respect. We have live training, a Virtuous Academy. We help handhold and do a lot of that heavy lifting of data migration to get you set up and to help with that change management. But we also provide playbooks. What are we going to do? What are the fundamentals that you can implement in Virtuous? How-to playbooks, best practices, learning from thought leaders. So we actually give you those actionable things you can do today to start doing responsive fundraising. And then support and coaching, dedicated success coach, a real person dedicated to working with you. Ongoing coaching. So we've got the team, the playbooks, the process around you to make sure you're successful. It's more than just setting up a new login and a new system. We want to be your team. All right, so let's pop into the demo and we will take a look here. So I'm going to stop my screen real quick and we will pop into Virtuous. All right, so everyone should now see a new screen. We are in Virtuous, and we'll spend some time walking through the product itself. So we are going to really think about Virtuous through the responsive fundraising framework. How do we listen better using Virtuous? How can we connect better? And how do we suggest the right next step using Virtuous? So we'll think about that as we walk through. But where we're at right now is our dashboard. And so this is where you as a user would come get the day started. The whole point of the dashboard is to give you the quick, hard-hitting metrics that you know you need to look at every day. Now, based on who I am as a user, security permissions, profile settings, what I look at might be different than what other people are looking at. So I can add and delete these widgets on the fly. Let's say I'm curious to, maybe I don't care about our giving by channel, although I can see here how we're doing with different channels over different time periods. Maybe I want to see just a quick snapshot of our most recent gifts. Maybe I'm a major gift officer, and so I just want to have a quick snapshot of everything that's come in over the last 30 days. So a lot of flexibility here on your dashboard to customize it in a way that matters to you. But let's talk about data, right? This is all the dashboard, and all of this is really is there to help us make decisions on the data that we have. But let's drill into a donor record so we can start to look at the type of data that we're tracking. And we're going to look at Joshua and Cheryl today. So this is Joshua and Cheryl. For example, they're the husband and wife. They are a donor household. And so the way we're tracking them, right, Joshua and Cheryl are kind of our donor household, but we can also look at Joshua and Cheryl individually within this. So one thing that's really important with Virtuous, we talk about responsive fundraising. The first tenet is listening. So how do we listen better to our donors? Well, of course, any good CRM should track the minimum of all your giving data, all that past transaction history, all of the things like contact info, phone number, email. Table stakes are there with Virtuous. But what are some other ways we can listen? So one is this cool button here called Social Insights. So if you have an email address for anyone in your database, you can actually find out all of their social media data. So this will automatically scrape the web anytime a new email comes into your file. So let's say a new donor comes in. It's going to scrape the web and pull back things like their social profiles, their pictures and photos, and any other basic demographic information. So this is actually our CEO and founder, Gabe Cooper. This is his personal social media data. And what this will do is now we can have a little bit more, a bigger snapshot of who this donor is. We know who has a Twitter handle in our database. We know who has a lot of social media data. And not only is it nice just to have things like their pictures automatically uploaded, to have a handle here on their Twitter and what they're talking about, but now we kind of know, well, who are the folks that are most socially influential? And very simply, what we can also do with this is, let's just say we've got another newsletter coming up. Well, now we can grab everyone in our database that has a Twitter handle, and instead of asking them to give, we're going to ask them to share. Maybe we'll replace the give button with a Twitter social share button and say, hey, will you talk about our upcoming campaign? Will you talk about this event? Will you share it with your network? So social data, when we can pull that in, we get another picture of who the donor is. So also, because we are a full marketing system as well, we're going to have other aspects that we can track around how they're engaging with our content and with our website. So if I scroll down here on this page, we're going to see this activity stream. This activity stream will show me things like gifts that are being given, notes that are being added. But if I scroll down here a bit, we'll also see how Joshua is clicking through our email content, what he's opening, what he's clicking on. So now we've got this picture of, well, what sort of emails are they opening? Are they more engaged with one piece versus the next? And we can use, again, all of this data to get a bigger picture. One other good aspect of listening is wealth data. So you can pull in outside wealth information on your donors to help you understand their capacity to give financially. And to really demonstrate the wealth data, I'm going to go to a different record. Someone you may know, Mark Cuban here. So Mark Cuban's got a lot of money, so his wealth data is going to be a little bit more prolific. But the neat part about this is we partner with Donor Search to pull in these data points. But all of this wealth information is stored in Virtuous. And there's a really good, important reason to why you want these stored in fields in Virtuous, because now they're searchable, they're queryable. I can use this data in my automation later. We'll talk about this. But let's say, for example, what if Mark Cuban came to your website and gave a $100 gift online? Well, wouldn't we want our major gift officer to know that Mark Cuban was there and that he actually has a charitable giving capacity of over $10 million? Well, because we're storing these fields in Virtuous, we can have things like alerts automatically come in because we're scraping for this data. And so we'll say, hey, Mark Cuban came, he gave a $100 gift, but we don't want to just send that normal thank you. We actually want to make sure a major gift officer calls and talks to him and Tiffany and make sure that they understand how they can give in different ways. So wealth data and all of that information is stored in Virtuous. You don't just get a report, you get it in the system. We go back to Joshua and Cheryl, and I want to round out more ways that Virtuous helps you listen. One other cool way is this location data. So again, we're big believers that people are more than just their checkbook. We want you to understand the whole person. And so location data is one neat way, because now we can start to see, where do they live in relation to other donors? Are they close by other major givers? Maybe there's a high concentration of volunteers that we see on the same block. We might want to ask them to host an event for us. So location data is another way that we can get to understand our donors. So you're starting to see a lot of data, and some of this might be unique. You're not able to track this today. But what I also wanted to show you is what Virtuous starts to do with this data. We not only want to present this and give you access to it, but we also want to start giving you insights into what the data can tell you. And so every record in Virtuous is scored. You'll see a financial score and a social score here. And this is using the data that Virtuous is collecting, but all it's doing is applying some predictive analytics here to help you understand, well, what is their capacity? If I needed to look across my entire donor universe, now I can kind of sort and find folks that have more financial capacity. Or maybe they don't have a lot of financial capacity, but they have a lot of social capacity. Again, we want to treat people as they deserve to be treated, and everyone has something to give. Whether or not it's money, it's time, it's talent, it's volunteerism, it's all of those things. And so this is defined using a lot of our data points. Social data will look at things like social media history, location data, and all of those, just to give you insights into what the system is telling you. Okay, there's lots of other data that we have here. Again, we don't have time for this today, but I'd encourage you, if there's anything that's piquing your interest, reach out to us afterwards. We'll be happy to deep dive into some of these fields and some of these areas. And if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A as we go along here. Okay, just to round out this profile a bit so everyone kind of knows other things that we're tracking. Tags, this is a great way to kind of add segmentation, categorization to your records. So whether maybe they're a major donor or volunteer or they're lapsing, whatever sort of characterizations that you have that you want to apply to donors, you can create and use tags. Relationship data is another great way to kind of track the interconnectedness of your donors in those relationships. Who are their friends, coworkers, who's their employer? All of those data points we can start to track. So now you can even start to see the spider web. How much influence do they have within your network of donors? Okay, one last element I did want to show, and I'm going to go to a different record for this, is web data. So again, Virtuous, because we're a full marketing system, we also have got a lot of great web integrations. So let's say, right, folks are going to be interacting with your website all the time. And I'm just going to show a sample website here, a demo website, right? And think about your website. You probably have a giving page. You probably have an About Us page. You probably even talk about like what we do, our different projects, our different initiatives, all of those things. So you're trying to tell a story. You're trying to, obviously let donors know what you're all about. But wouldn't it be nice if we could understand, well, what sort of content are donors looking at on our website? How often are they going to our giving page? Well, now in Virtuous, you can actually track web activity. So if I'm looking here at this record, I can click on web history. I'll also see it here in this activity stream, but I can start to understand where and how are they moving about our website? What pages are they visiting? If I click here to view, I can even see the page, and lo and behold, it's showing me the page I was just on because Virtuous is tracking some of this data. So what can you do with this? Right, if I'm calling a donor, it's nice to kind of know, well, how are they interacting with their website? What are they doing? But there's some other cool ways that we can use this data. We'll talk about that a little bit when we talk about connecting and suggesting. But you can track these visits. So if someone was going to hang around your page and they spent a ton of time reading about the projects that you're doing in Monument Valley, Utah, maybe they spent 20 minutes just reading all of those different pages. Well, wouldn't it be nice if the next email that they received from you wasn't generic? It didn't talk about all your projects. It just talked about Monument Valley, because we know that's what they're engaging with. So we can use this data later. Okay, so just to reinforce, listening, first tenet of responsive. The more we know, the better we can connect. And again, the more holistic of a view of a donor we have, the better we can connect with them personally as a human being. So how do we start to connect? What does that look like? Well, obviously, again, all of the Virtuous loves multi-channel fundraising. So let's get it out of the way. Email, digital, in-person, mail, phone, we love it all. We're not biased to one or the other. But that really starts to happen a lot over here on the marketing side of Virtuous. So Virtuous is a single unified system. We are focused on, again, fundraising and donor development, but we are not two systems in one. This isn't a bolt-on, this is a single unified system. And so we share all of the data, it is all together. So now, when we think about connecting, it's really cool because we can use all those data points that we know about donors to create a lot more personal, meaningful engagement. So this is automation in Virtuous, and this is really a big part of how we connect with donors and do it at scale. So think about automation like a workflow builder. And I'm going to show you a couple common examples of things you're probably already trying to do today. And I'm going to show you a couple different things. So one of the most impactful things you can do to help increase donor retention is a new donor welcome series. And all a new donor welcome series is anytime we get a first-time gift, we just want to thank these donors like crazy over and over and over again over a period of time, where we're just constantly following up with a thank you, constantly closing the loop, sending them more information about what they gave to, why it matters, and why we care, right? And so studies have shown that if we can do just a new donor welcome series, just simply this, we can actually increase retention by 50%. And these are studies outside of Virtuous. It's not us saying this. Studies have shown that just having an effective new donor welcome series will increase retention 50%. So after this, go back and look. Figure out how many first-time gifts you get in a year, and then look at how many second-time gifts you get. And then add 50% to that second-time gift. What would that mean if you could get a 50% bump in the second gift from all your donors? That's big ROI. So let's talk about this workflow. All this is doing is this is a workflow that's built to trigger anytime a first-time gift comes in. And you'll see these actions below here. So I've designed this workflow. You can create workflows on your own, but you really build these steps and these actions. You'll see I can drag these around to different steps. Maybe I want to put a delay in between different ones. But what will happen is, as soon as a first-time gift comes in, Virtuous is automatically going to tag that record as a first-time donor. So the neat part is the system's even going to automatically segment itself. So you'll always know where folks are at in the journey. Maybe we want to add them to our general email newsletter, so we can automatically add them there. But then you'll see this thank you email. So if I click on this, this will actually take me out to an email builder. And this is in Virtuous. I didn't pop out to another system. This is all within Virtuous. And so this would be an email that could potentially get triggered as a thank you. And so I can design emails in Virtuous. I can add and delete buttons. I can change my content. It's really easy if I wanted to say drag in a button here. Click on this button. I can change the color scheme, the styling really, really easily. We want it to feel, and like, it is a drag and drop interface. What you see is what you get. We don't want it to be really hard to put together an email. But again, the nice part here is because Virtuous is a unified system, when I'm building my emails, I have all these merge fields available. So I can say, hi, first name, thanks for your last gift, and we can drop in their last gift amount. In all of the donor giving data here, if we wanted to reference their life-to-date giving amount, their last gift amount, their largest gift amount, and also any custom field. So Virtuous is a really extendable system. You can create custom fields. So if you're tracking their t-shirt size, I can merge this value into my emails. So now my emails have a lot of flexibility to be hyper custom versus using an email system outside of Virtuous, right? It doesn't know, MailChimp doesn't know what their last gift amount is. And no knocks against MailChimp, it's an amazing system. But now having more of this data here, my emails can be more contextual and more relevant. So just wanted to show the email builder. Well, let's pop back into that automation. So what automation will do is it's going to trigger that email to be sent from you. And then you'll see a series of other actions start to happen. Maybe someone on your team, maybe it's one of your gift officers, development director, they get a task assigned to them. So Virtuous will send them a task to their phone, their email, it'll assign it in Virtuous, and it will say, hey, call this person and say thank you. you'll see a series of other emails start to get triggered. But you'll also notice this letter down here. So you might be wondering what that is. And I mentioned before that Virtuous is a full multi-channel automation system. We're not just helping you trigger emails. We want to trigger the entire kind of process. So if I click here on this letter, Virtuous can actually allow you to automate direct mail. So you're probably wondering what that means. So just like you would create an email in Virtuous, I can create letters like this, and also postcards. We'll show you a postcard example in a minute. And just like I would kind of pre-templatize and create an email, I can pre-create this letter. I've got merge fields available just like I did in the email. So if I want to merge these in, that can be done. So what will happen is, as part of this workflow, it's going to trigger this letter to be sent. And Virtuous actually has a service on the back end. So the letter is printed, it's posted, it's delivered automatically without anyone on your team having to do a thing. That's right, you really can have direct mail automated. So this letter is going to show up at the donor's doorstep, and you'll actually get an alert when it's delivered if you'd like. So on that donor history, we can even show you when it was confirmed and delivered. So if you even want to alert a gift officer to say, hey, that letter was just delivered, let's call them now to follow up. So we'll show you postcards, but I just wanted to show this is a really neat tool to be able to automate direct mail. Now, is the goal of this to replace all your direct mail acquisition and all of your large direct mail? No. This is designed to be kind of that point in time where I'm sending, 1 to 2 to 4 to 5 letters a day that are all unique to all different donors for all different reasons, right? And it's highly, highly custom. And that's what this is for. All those different moments where you've got an opportunity to build a relationship, to differentiate the conversation. This is a great way to do that. So let's look at another automation. And again, just to reinforce, this and what we're talking about here is the connect element of responsive fundraising, right? Not every single time does it need to be a gift ask. When we can do things like this and differentiate the follow-up, now we can send information that's valuable to them, make sure that they feel like they're in closer to the cause. And I'm not over there having to manually create a ton of emails, manually do all of these things. The thing I love about automation is this helps you do your truest and best, highest purpose as a fundraiser, right? We got into this world not so we could sit around and mess with systems all day. We want to be in front of donors more. We want to make more calls. We want to have human conversations. So when I can get rid of the minutia, and I've got something like Virtuous that's telling me, hey, make this call right now. It's the best moment. The donor's ready to hear from you. And it's in the moment that it matters to the donor. The call is so much more purposeful. And so we want to get rid of that so you can actually do more of the stuff you love. We don't want to replace what you do. We want to enhance what you do and actually make it even more effective. So I wanted to say that because, again, this is really important. Here's another example of a workflow. And so this is a pretty common one. I'm showing you things that you probably may already be trying to do today. But this is an automation that's all designed to honor and recognize donors as they reach certain life-to-date giving milestones with you. So this one is just an example. You can design these however you'd like, but in this case, it's saying at $1,000, $5,000, or $10,000 in life-to-date giving, we want these actions below here to just trigger automatically. And so you'll see that these actions are set to go. And so anytime maybe the donor gives their 4th gift and they reach $1,000 in life-to-date giving, well, that means these actions here are going to trigger. The nice part, again, you're never going to miss that moment. You're not having to run a monthly report to see who reached this milestone so I can finally get the file to MailChimp and make sure that email gets sent to them maybe 30 days later, get the call to them later. It's in the moment. And that's what helps make this so effective. And so you'll see, again, we've got some tasks, some calls, and automation could do a lot more besides just, tasks and calls and emails. You'll see here that maybe at this point, we want to automatically add this donor to Susan's major donor portfolio and assign it to her portfolio. We can do even things like changing the values of fields. And so you'll see several actions that we can do here. Add them to lists, add notes, change a field, send a letter. And this year, Virtuous is actually working on rolling out text messaging as well to be able to have a true full multi-channel. I did briefly want to show this letters on demand and postcards. I think postcards are a really easy, fun way to get started with letters on demand with Virtuous. So let's just say maybe on your giving forms now, you can just ask for birthday. Make it optional. You don't have to ask for everyone. But right, if we can understand and know the birthdays of our donors, now we can just have it automated. So maybe a week before everyone's birthday in the system, it'll just trigger a birthday postcard like this. That's, you know, your branding, your design, all up to you. But that's just gonna send in the mail. So, I mean, what would it mean to you if you could send a birthday postcard to every single donor with a fun, just relational touch point that's just relational, and you were able to do it consistently all the time? And again, this isn't sucking out anybody's time. You don't have to have a volunteer come stuff envelopes. You don't have to worry about it yourself. It's just happening in the background. So these are the kind of things that we love because, again, every donor can get a personal connection, no matter the size of their giving. Okay, and I see some questions coming in. We're super happy. I'm glad to have those come in. So we'll get to those here in a bit. All right. Okay, so the last piece I want to talk about, especially when it comes to responsive fundraising, is this idea of suggest. So we talked about listening, and Virtuous gives you a lot of tools to understand the whole person. Things that you're doing today, plus a lot of other ways to understand donors. Automation and marketing really help you connect, build relationships over time. But how do we then suggest the right ask? Well, there's several cool things that Virtuous does here. And one thing I wanted to show that we haven't talked about is the online portion of what Virtuous can do. So Virtuous can, inside Virtuous, we can create donation forms that you can embed on your website. And I'll show you several examples. So this is just a basic form on our kind of sample website here of a Virtuous giving form. They're embedded directly within your website, so you don't have to have it on a hosted page or something outside of your website. You can embed it directly in. I'll show you a couple customer examples as well. So this is the Freedom Story. This is their donation form. That is a Virtuous form. You'll see here that they have things like the employer match built into their form. So this really helps increase your gift size. If a donor comes and says, I work for the Home Depot, and that will trigger the employer matching process, or the likelihood of getting an employer matching gift goes up significantly, automates that. So really nice form here embedded in their website. Here's another, just to give you an example. They've got a fun pop out here. You can see the gift array styled a bit differently, and what sort of data they have here is different. All right, so let's talk about suggest. How do we suggest the right ask? So there's one really cool way we can actually do this online. So again, because Virtuous can track web activity, we're gonna know when a donor is at one of your giving forms. So let's just say, for example, what if Mark Cuban came back to your website and showed up? Like, we don't want to show Mark Cuban the normal gift array. We want to show Mark Cuban something that's more in line with what he can give. So one really cool thing Virtuous can do is with your forms that are embedded on your website, you can create gift arrays. You can have all different types of gift arrays. But what I can do here is I can actually look into this gift array and say, let's use a customized gift array when we know who this donor is. So then from here, you can actually select different options. So I can say, let's use their average gift amount. And then I want to add these factors to the gift array. So for example, that donor form right now knows that it's me. So if I click save and I go back to this form and I refresh, you'll notice that the gift array amount just changed. And that's because Virtuous knows that's David at the form, and my average gift is about $500. So when I show up to this gift array, it's going to be custom to me. So when we're talking about suggesting, how do we know what's the right ask, what's the right range, what is it financial, is it social? This is a really cool way to make sure that even your online ask is more in line with what the donor can give. And so everyone will get a different amount. So one really cool statistic here is we had, when we rolled this out, our customers saw an 18% increase in the size of their average gift. So just by clicking that one button, the online gift size went up by 18%. So that's another math exercise I want everyone to go do. Go look at your online gift size. What would 18% mean to you? What would that mean from a financial standpoint? So a lot of great ways that even our online forms can create a better way to suggest the right ask. Virtuous, just kind of talking about online forms, we do have a full donor portal. And so you're able to create a donor portal where they can log in, manage their preferences, update their recurring gift history, and all of that. Just wanted to call that out. You do have the ability for donors to kind of opt in and self-manage. This really helps too, when donors can update their own contact information, help you keep the database and all that up to date for you. All right, another area I want to talk about with Suggest, and this is actually back at our dashboard. So remember, we talk about we're collecting a lot of data. We do our social score and our financial score for all of our donors. You may have noticed on the donor record that Virtuous actually starts suggesting what a next best ask could look like. And this report in our dashboard is called our relationship building recommendations, our best calls to make today report. And what this is doing is it's just bubbling up ideas to say, hey, we think Gloria and Wayne here are due for a call, and we should probably ask them for a $175 recurring gift. If I scroll down a little bit too, I love this one because it's saying, hey, we actually see with Robin and Jeffrey here that based on how they've been giving, they're pre-lapsed here, they're about to lapse. We want to catch them now and call them. And we think a $300 single gift is best. And again, this is just a ballpark. All we're trying to do is take all the data you already have. And instead of having to go to Excel and do some data manipulation and hire a consultant to give you insights and tell you who to call, software can do that today. We're just trying to take the data and bubble it up to you so you can make the best call, the most impactful call. Really cool story with this report. So we had a customer that had a big month fundraiser, and they were $10,000 short of the goal for the month. So they were like, what are we going to do? They came into this report. They made the first 2 calls on the list. And within those first 2 calls, they made up that $10,000 gap and hit their goals. And now, what did Virtuous do in that standpoint? We're not making the calls. We're not like automating fundraising, but we're trying to help you get the insights so you can make the best, most impactful calls and do the best with your time during the day. And so it was a really cool story. They actually drove down to our office and took our developers out to lunch. But that's the sort of stuff we'd love to hear, the impact that we can make by just making sure that you are empowered to make the best calls, best decisions that you can. Okay, I want to encourage everyone again, if you still have questions, make sure you put them in the chat. And I'll also encourage you too, if you're curious, make sure you go to virtuouscrm.com, click get a demo. We'll be happy to walk through it a little more. There's a couple things I want to wrap up with because I do think they're important. We talk about being a single team. How are we here to support you? And so all of the support, all of our resources are built into Virtuous. You can start a conversation and a chat with our team right here so you get support directly. You see we're always replying here within a few hours. We've got our release notes, our support articles. So if I'm curious about, let's say, gift entry, I can come here and type this in, and I'm going to get all of my different gift entry options. If I click, I'll have the support article. I've got a video I can watch in addition to this. So a lot of it really built into Virtuous. We also have training that we do every single month. This is more proactive for our customers where we talk about how do we use data to send better emails? How do we track custom data? What can we do to extend Virtuous more and get more impact out of it? How do we use Virtuous Forms in our online integrations? And so this is more than just break, fix, and how do I use the system, but this is proactive ways to think about what can we do to take it to the next level. All right, and then the last piece is we talked about onboarding. Change is hard, right? There's no way around that. Changing is and in many times, right? It's that that painful, necessary process you have to get to that other side of like growth and new ways of doing things. And so Virtuous knows that it's much more than just transferring data from one system to the next. We want to be better than just, you know, a tool in your tool set, and we want to be a partner. And so we have a very detailed success plan that we go through when we do onboarding, training, and data migration for you. So we handhold you through that entire process. It's more than, again, just giving us some CSVs and migrating data, especially with change management. So just to let you know, this is something we care about deeply. We think it is important. We don't want to avoid it. We want to face change head on and really help you migrate and not be afraid of it. Our team is here with you. This shouldn't be a monumental task. We're here to serve and support. So just letting you know, especially as it relates to organizational change, right? When any sort of change like this happens, it's tough. So we help you figure out, well, what's the vision? Why are we doing this? Let's keep that at the forefront. What skills do we need? Team skills. How can we train you? What sort of incentives can we put in place so people know why this is important? Resources and an action plan. So we put these together so everything is guided with you. All right. So that's what we're going to finish in terms of the demo today. I'm going to stop my screen real quick. We're going to pull up our Q&A, and then Jeff will help us lead us through any questions that have come in. And so we'll start there. Jeff, do you want to check out our Q&A? And I'm happy to start firing off questions and answering those.
Yeah, thank you, David. The first question that we have deals with donor search, which we saw on the contact record there. And the question is the wealth data an add-on, or is the capacity information part of the Virtuous package?
It's a great question. Yeah, so wealth data is an optional feature with Virtuous. There's actually a couple different levels depending on your need. And so we can do things like unlimited data scrapes. And so you can scrape for all the data across all your donors. It can be limited to just 100 a month in case you didn't want to look across all of your relationships. One thing I will say though is one big difference with Virtuous is that data is stored inside Virtuous. And so if you've got the data, it's going to be there forever. And it's really neat because I can use that to compare and contrast with the data I have. So if I wanted to run a search in Virtuous to say, who's given us less than $1,000 but has real estate value over $2,000, I can do all of that comparing and contrasting within Virtuous. And so it's neat because one of the differences, the way we store the data, is it's all stored within Virtuous. It's not just an outside report.
Great, thank you. Yeah. And the second question we have kind of touches on some of that training and migration. And the question is, it's a multi-part question, but the question was, it seems like it would be a lot of work to get all those relationships into Virtuous, especially if we don't currently track them. For example, if we currently have couples in one account, how easy is it to split them into two? And are those family relationships, et cetera, automatically put in, or is that something that the user inputs? It seems like there would be kind of a lot of energy put in on the front end to run some of these automated processes that we looked at.
Yeah, good question. So definitely an area we can dive in and explore in more depth. A couple things that we will say. So depending on how, one of this depends on how are you currently tracking the data today in your current CRM. And it sounds like, right, if you currently have couples as one account, then Virtuous can do that today. So we do household. So if you'll remember, Joshua and Cheryl were a single unit, a single household, the Joshua and Cheryl Bennett household. But each individual, Joshua and Cheryl, were individual people that also made up that household. And so you can track them and search for them independently. And so usually, right, if we're from an IRS perspective, we're going to track Joshua and Cheryl as a single household. We'll receipt them as a household. And so normally Joshua and Cheryl wouldn't be separated, but you absolutely could have two different Joshua and Cheryl households and then link them together with the relationships. So in terms of those relationships, if you're currently tracking them today in a CRM, and if you have that mechanism during migration, we can most likely put those over. But right, there's no way that Virtuous just knows those relationships off the bat. And so a lot of times, right, based on your institutional knowledge, you would create those relationships over time. So as you get to know donors and you see that, oh, you're related to so-and-so, you could just create that relationship in Virtuous. Things like social data and wealth data, that's automatically scraped, that's automatically appended into those records. And so you don't have to worry about any of that data. And then the question there about, right, it's good to make sure the data is accurate before to run automated processes. Absolutely. It's one of those, not challenges, I won't say, but right, our automations are only going to be as good as the data we have. Right, if we're going to make sure we're thanking donors for a gift, we better make sure it's recognized the right way and that data was input the right way. One part of our data migration is we do spend a lot of time looking at your old systems and old data structure and making recommendations about how that data should be mapped into Virtuous and how we should restructure it. As part of our training too, we also spend a lot of time talking through what does a healthy data structure look like? What does good data integrity look like? And there's a lot of great studies out there. That's one of the big things. Take data quality seriously. It's worth the time and investment up front because it pays dividends on the back end. Even just thinking about, right, at the end of the year when you've got a lot of duplicates or you're trying to do receipting, when we don't practice good habits on the front end, it actually creates a whole lot more time on the back end when we're trying to merge and manage multiple duplicates. And so we have a lot of tools in Virtuous as well that help you with data health. So even if you've got bad data coming into Virtuous, we have ways to show you what duplicates might exist, what bad addresses might exist, phone numbers, emails. So we have a lot of ways. So again, big conversation. We've several things that we can tackle to help in terms of onboarding or data health tools, but it's a great question.
Yeah, thank you. And it looks like we have time for one final question. This is something that was asked directly, and actually it's been something that we've been hearing quite a bit from organizations across the team, and that is, with all of the uncertainty going on in the world right now between COVID and the economy and the upcoming election, and with all of that going on, why should nonprofits consider making a change to their software today? Why should that be a priority?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a great question. And I think, there's a couple things that happen now with just all the dynamic changes that have happened with COVID and all of that. I think there's one is just let's hunker down and wait it out. And then the other option is let's use this as a springboard and a compelling event to change. So the only thing I will share is Virtuous customers between April and July. So the kind of the big last 4 months where COVID was really running rampant. Virtuous customers saw a 100% increase in their giving in 2020 versus 2019. So especially now when all of the things that we normally relied on, right, when those big events, when those went away and we relied on those for 80% of our revenue, when major donors were giving us 80% of what we needed, right? This shows you that the world can put a halt to that really quickly. And so the neat part is our customers using responsive fundraising were really able to diversify all their different channels. They were able to build really good relationships with all of their donors. And so the neat part is people like me and you, right? We're all stuck at home and we're all trying to figure out, I want to help. What can I do? And the nonprofits that were able to reach out and engage all of their donors have seen just huge positive increases. And so I'll just say, right, the numbers speak for it there. 100% increase in 2020 during that time versus last year. Like, generosity is alive and well. It's just a matter of being able to reach the donors where they're at now, because those old channels kind of are harder to reach. And I'd encourage you again, Virtuous literally wrote the book on responsive fundraising. If you go to Amazon, or better yet, just email our team, we'll get you a free copy. But just read, it's a few hundred pages, but it's all about how do we create those sort of relationships in a world that's constantly changing. Good question.
Alrighty, well, thank you, David, and thank you everyone that was able to join. Again, we'll be sending out a recording of this to everyone, and we would encourage you to share that. If you have any other questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Visit our website. We have a lot of resources there that you can learn from. And if you'd like a more personalized demo of what Virtuous can do specifically for your organization, go to virtuouscrm.com. And you can connect with our sales team and request a demo there. And we would love to hear from you. So with that, I'm going to wish everyone a great rest of the week, and we'll be in touch and talk to you soon.